Welcome back to Black and Classic Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Monet, where we talk all things politics and pop culture. This week's our headlines are all about local accountability, the big hypocrisy, and it looks like MAGA is fighting themselves. We're here to discuss all these layered topics and more. Stay tuned.
That blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture. I think that's what you're asking. I have no.
Now, before we continue, I'm sure you can hear it, okay? Your girl is under the weather, family. I don't know what happened. This cold just came over me, and I'm just accepting it, okay? I believe this will be my first and last of the season. Today is the first day of winter, so look, this is my first one. We getting it out the way and we're moving on. And before you even think it or say it, don't. I'm not getting no flu shot, okay? I'm not. I had that flu shot one time. It did me under. Never again. Okay? I don't need it, don't want it. So if you see me taking a sip of this tea here, okay, just know I'm trying to make it through for y'all because I love y'all, all right? So we're going to make it through. It might sound a little unbearable. I'm sorry, okay? I know it's a lot, but I could not leave y'all hanging, okay? We are going to discuss some things. A lot has happened, and I really, really, really want to get into it. It couldn't wait a week, so we'll just have to suffer together. Now, none of these stories exist in a vacuum. They all point to power, negligence, and it seems like everyone is scrambling because they're getting exposed or they're being revealed some truths that everyone kind of already knew. But before we get there, of course, we have to discuss our recap. Now, I wanted to go into, of course, I knew that this episode was going to be very interesting to people. Candace and Erica was a big thing last week. And so I knew that people were going to be opinionated. And I knew that it was going to be two sides. Either you hate it or you loved it, right? It just is what it is. So Jimmy Traces commented and said, as a representative at Turning Point USA, I do not like the fact that Candace Owens will even spread lies about her best friend after his death and also monetize her best friend's death. That is evil. And again, I asked the same question that I asked in the video. I said, I'm curious, can you elaborate on the lies? The more I look at it, no one can actually pinpoint, articulate, or just write down the lie. I asked, I put out reels, I put out clips. What was the lie? And everyone's just like, no, 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 no. It's just bad. It's just inherently bad. Okay, got it. Bad. What was the bad part? What was the lie? She's monetizing off his death. Well, she's speaking and investigating about her friend's death. People do that for their family members. Their family member dies and they go out, they want the case to be solved. So they go to TikTok, they go to, Instagram, they go to Facebook and they create pages, they create buzz to get an answer for someone's death. That's not her trying to monetize, that's her looking for an answer. So again, I ask, what has been the lie? To me, we still haven't gotten an answer to even that simple question, besides bad Candace, okay? The next comment is kind of where I think most people are falling. It says, I'm not a fan of Candace, but she is not saying anything that we aren't thinking. The fact that his widow sees nothing wrong or suspicious reads strange to me. And I responded, I said, that's really it, right? The circumstances around Charlie Kirk's death are questionable, so people are asking questions. That's all people are doing, you know? Sometimes somebody has to say the quiet part out loud and stand in whatever comes next. I think Candace knew going into this that she was going to get backlash, right? People weren't going to love what she's doing, but it had to be done. And it is what it is to me, right? Like, we may not love it, we may not feel like we would have handled the situation that way, but at the end of the day, this is someone she cared about, and this is someone that, she feels deserves more than what the people around him are giving. And hey, it is what it is. Now, with that being said, we're going to jump in to our local news. So, Connecticut has joined a multi-state settlement with Kia and Hyundai, and I thought this was very interesting because in the past few years, we've all heard about, if you haven't, I'm sure you have though, we've all heard about the Kia boys, and the Kia boys are basically going around. They're most likely like, teenagers, early 20s, stealing the Kias and going joyriding, right? Just busting up the cars, having a grand old time in these Kias. So now multiple states, including Connecticut, have joined in this lawsuit against Kia and Hyundai because they're saying, hey, you failed to install anti theft technology, which contributed to a lot of people's cars being stolen, wrecked, totaled, and all of those different things. And it's interesting to me because this wasn't something that was like some sophisticated crime, wave where these young kids or young adults were looking to steal cars and sell them. No, it just was something that was convenient because these cars, they learned, had no anti-theft technology in them. And it was like, "Oh, okay, well, we can hotwire this car, take it for a joyride. It is what it is," you know? So that spiked. And for me, which is crazy to, read about in this article, is that Kia, like, deliberately sold cars to the United States or brought cars to the United States rather, that did not have this anti-theft technology. So it's like you shipped all these cars here knowing they could just be stolen. Absolutely crazy. And then as I'm reading this article, it turns out that they were like, "Okay, yeah, you can get your money back in this settlement, but did you do anything to prevent it?" "What do you mean, did I do anything to prevent it? I brought it from you thinking I wouldn't have these issues." But they're like, "No, did you install any anti-theft technology? Did you go and try to see if something could be done?" Like, why would I need to do that? You wanna cut costs on your end, give these cars to United States that are all janky and messed up, and then you want the consumer to fix the problem? I don't know. It's crazy to me. To me, I felt bad also because I feel like the policing couldn't be handled. They couldn't manage it. I feel, if you know about it, I feel every community saw like it was just an influx of like stolen cars at one point, especially like over summer where kids were out of school. Oh my God. Like everyone was like, make sure you lock your car doors. And no one really wanted to buy Kias, even though they were super cheap. Nobody wanted to buy a Kia because no one really wants their car to just be stolen, right? You go into the store, come out, car gone. Go into the gas station, come out, car gone. Like, come on. And police were like, well, we can't also hold these kids because they're juvenile. So now if we do catch them, they just have to sit at the police station till their parents show up. Parents show up, pick them up, they go out, do the same thing. It just was like all around, it was just such a messed up thing, starting because Kia and Hyundai didn't want to install this anti-theft technology that they were installing in other cars in other countries. But somehow you get to the US and you're like, nah, leave it out. They'll deal with it. That's so crazy, but I do commend Connecticut for taking, that step to hold these companies, responsible and accountable for that because there is just no way that, especially with this coming out, I thought at one point, I was like, "Well, maybe they're just easier to, like, maneuver," but to find out that they just flat out had no anti-theft technology, that's crazy. Like, yeah, I would be looking for my money. Cause what? Do they tell you that when you buy the now listen, if they tell you that when you buy the car, that's different, but I feel like they wouldn't really tell you that or they'll try to build it like, "Oh, you can get deluxe package for 10,000 more, and then that protects your car, but they don't tell you that like your car is like a hot wire waiting to happen, Like I don't think they sell you that because then who's gonna buy the car? You know what I mean? So that's all there is to that. And I want to kind of transition now into our next topic. So, speaking of corporations and scrambling when the pressure hits. This story this story here is a little bit layered. We're going to take it slow. So, let's jump in to our headlines. Now, TikTok has signed a deal with the US, giving them control of the US operations. It was bought by Oracle, which is an investment group. They invest heavily in like AI and cloud based data and things like that. Now, for me, this didn't feel like a situation where they were like, you know, we're trying to protect Americans and this is to help Americans and we don't want the Chinese government to have access to this. To me, it felt like they are trying to rebrand controlling America because if you wanted to buy TikTok, you would have just fought to buy TikTok flat out. I don't believe it's necessary to buy TikTok and only buy a piece. If you want to buy a piece, then that means, okay, you're looking to control that piece, right? You want a piece of a larger puzzle because you're looking to control us. And so, as I'm reading this article, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. Not too much is reported on it. It's just like, oh, TikTok bought, Oracle bought the US operations of TikTok, and that was it. Every article, okay? I looked up multiple, y'all know, when I got my paper, that means I did my due diligence. I looked up multiple articles and every single one said the exact same thing. The language was very, very strict. Let's get into that. So, first thing I'm going to ask, who owns Oracle? Who owns Oracle? Because to be able to afford that, you got to have some money. So let's Google that. Who owns Oracle? Oracle is owned by Larry Ellison. Now, when that name popped up, it was an instant trigger. Maybe a few weeks ago, I had went down a whole deep dive of Larry Ellison. So when I saw it, I said, wow, this feels vaguely familiar. Let me look a little bit deeper into Larry Ellison. Now, mind you, it is a publicly traded company, so he owns about 42 to 43% of Oracle, but still, that's enough. Okay. It's almost 50% of the company. That is enough of the company, right? So of course now I have to go and refresh my memory of who Larry Ellison is. Bingo, it pops up. This is a guy who's essentially best buds with Trump, right? They are I don't want to say in cahoots, but Larry Ellison donated to his campaign, helped out his campaign. I believe they are either in talks or he does own CBS News, things of that nature. Now, Larry's son, David, owns Paramount Sky. So he owns like Paramount Plus. I think it's Skydance as well. You following? They are media moguls. Think Rupert Murdoch and things like that. Media moguls. Another key piece of this information, they are also Jewish. Do with that what you will. Do with that what you will. I'm not I'm not speculating anything inappropriate. All I'm saying is they are a, what did it say, centibillionaire conglomerate family, Jewish. Do with that what you will. And according to NPR, Trump tapped Larry and said, "Hey, I need this done. Can you intercede?" Right? Again, do with that what you will. Now, the narrative they want to tell us, again, TikTok's bad. TikTok cannot have our information. TikTok cannot have data. But you'll tap your buddy in, your Jewish buddy in to come in and buy the US operations of TikTok. And now he is in control. You are the president. It's just, I don't love it. I don't love it. I will be honest. Because if we're very honest, we understand how TikTok and AI is controlling culture and controlling politics, and really how the algorithm plays into people's mind. So if you give people who are billionaires who already mean us no good, if we're being honest, if you give them now the power to control the data from one of the biggest apps in the world, just think the type of information that they have. I am on TikTok, and on TikTok, in order to operate, which to me is just the craziest thing, but in order to operate a business account on TikTok, you have to upload identification. Excuse me? Yes. So I had my TikTok business account, and this new terms and conditions rolled out, and you have to upload identification, meaning your driver's license, front and back. Okay. In order to keep your business account, and then also, benefit from that business aspect. And they kept asking me and kept asking me. And then it was like, I was getting emails about, you're 14 days away from losing your business account. You're 7 days away. You're 3 days away. I just took it off. Okay. Switch back to personal account. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't need to feel the pressure of uploading my identification to TikTok. What do you need my identification for? And then I have to think of all the people who don't see the issue with that, who are just uploading that. And then it can just continue to change, where now it's like, okay, we're paying you X amount, put up your social security card. Like it's just a little too much for me. So this is strange. I just wanted to point that out, because I think a lot of people see like, oh, Trump won. He got, the US operations of TikTok. TikTok's here to stay. We can stay on TikTok. No one's looking into Oracle. No one's looking into Larry Ellison and the connection with Trump, and then how Trump also helped them acquire like Paramount and all of that. Like, no one's really looking at that. And that's concerning to me. What also is concerning to me is that I keep telling you guys, Trump, we'll get into it a little bit later, but Trump came out and, he was so MAGA and America first, and, make America great again and all of these different things. But it's really, let me see. It's really MJ. MJGA, that's what it is. Make Jewish great again, because that is where we are in America. That is who our leader is. Our leader is someone who is doing whatever they say. Let me tell y'all, and this is not going to be clipped out. This is going to be just for the people who really watch this episode all the way through. I was watching the NFL yesterday. Go Bears. We did win against the Packers. And a commercial came up, and at first I thought they were advertising headphones, because everyone kept putting headphones in. I was like, okay, are they advertising headphones? And then as I kept watching, I was like, okay, this must be one of those like Jesus commercials, right? Like, love Jesus, right? And it's like Jesus.org. Nope, kept watching. It was an ad to stop Jewish hate. And I feel like I saw comedians say this, or maybe it was Tim Dillon who said this, where it was like, you want to be hated so bad that you're going to force people to hate you. No, like right now, no one really hates you, but because you keep coming out, making it seem like everyone hates you, now people are going to start to hate you, because it's going to be annoying and like irritating, and like, why do you want to be hated so bad when it's not happening, And so now you're going to see people go against you because you're irritating people, And now people are going to be like, What are you hiding? Like it feels like projection, it feels like deflection, and now people are going to look into you and find out, oh wait, there are reasons why I shouldn't like you. And that's just what it gives. But that's all I'm going to say on that before they censor this episode. You know what I'm talking about? Now, and talking about power itself, we really got to switch gears and get into this Epstein stuff, okay? Because I know on Friday, you guys, they did release more of the documents, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't look into it. I looked at the pictures because in the pictures, I think one of the biggest things was the tattoo on the foot. Maybe I'm missing the significance. You guys can drop it in the comments and let me know. But what I do know is that there was a New York Times columnist, David Brooks, who was in that, and I thought that was interesting because this isn't to accuse anyone, right? I think people are getting this idea that we want the Epstein files to accuse people. It's not to accuse people. It's to establish a pattern and then a proximity to Epstein and to this group, right? That's why I said in a previous episode, no name would shock me, but let's start building a pattern of who these people are. You know what I mean? If you're consistently interacting with the same group of people and you're consistently in the same proximity of these people, then birds of a feather flock together. You understand? Maybe it might be a one off or it might be something randomly. But if you have columnists and you have journalists in this situation, it's not too far fetched to say, hey, they're going to take this and either they're going to do a positive, piece and have a positive narrative in order to sway the public. Like you have to kind of pay attention to those type of things. And then who is always there? Who's always in the photos, right? I feel like they had, if I'm not mistaken, y'all know I got the article here. I'll try to include some pictures, but let me get to the article, y'all, because people be acting like I don't do my research, and I do. Yes. Bill Clinton was in so many pictures. I feel like they had Bill in a pool. They had Steve Bannon. And I'm like, oh, okay. Clearly there's a pattern here, right? The same people amongst the same people, right? Here we have Bill with Ghislaine, right? So, and Jeffrey's there. So this, to me, this isn't a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. Like, this is a thing about power. This is about power. To me, what is your proximity to the people of this level and this power? We got to get out of thinking it about parties. This is about power. Parties don't matter. This is about power for people who are always adjacent and next to some nonsense, right? That's what this is, and that's what we need to take a look at. It's not just politicians and financiers and large people like Larry Ellison and Rupert Murdoch. It's a lot of people in this group, and we need to be able to identify them so we can say, oh, okay, I see who you are and I know what you do, and that way they can't deflect, but they have to now start taking some accountability for what they're a part of. And that just is that. Now, I'm going to move past that because, we don't really care too much else about Epstein. We just got to keep our ear to what's going on over there. We don't got to deep dive. Just keep your ear to what's going on and pay attention who's always close to the shenanigans over there. And don't just look at the large names, look at the small names, look at the columnists, the journalists, the authors, right? Those small people, directors, right? Because directors are putting out movies and things like that? What messaging are they putting out to children? Just pay attention to like every bit of it so you understand what it looks like on a larger scale and the big picture of it all. Now, with that being said, we're now going to talk about some groups this one group, okay, that just can't stay united. And this will be my last topic of the day. So I'm going to sit here for a little bit because, whoo, child. Let me take a sip. Hold on, y'all. Okay. MAGA. What is going on? Because it seems like you guys can no longer stay aligned and you have turned to outright publicly bashing each other, fighting, and just really exposing the fractured movement that you guys were once so hell-bent on pushing out to the world. Now, if you don't know, recently Turning Point USA held their AmericaFest, and if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that it was in Phoenix, Arizona. Yes, it was in Phoenix at the Phoenix Convention Center. And it was very interesting because, one, I wasn't going to watch. Please, okay? Please. I was not going to watch. But I knew people were going to have to address Candace. She is the elephant in all of the rooms, okay? I knew she was going to have to be addressed. So, starting out, Ben Shapiro comes out to speak. Now, before we really dissect that part, let me just say this is what happens when a movement is built on bad vibes instead of real values. To begin with, this MAGA movement, when it came out, everyone was like, what in the world is this? And it did get, certain people riled up and, created a community, and they're wearing their red hats and this, that, and the third. And I totally understood, they needed something to get behind. I got it and I understood. They were coming out of the Obama administration. Then you had Hillary and Joe, and it was like, no. They were not with it. So I totally understood. He ran on that emotional connection that people needed. I got it. I totally understood. But that was just bad vibes. It wasn't really a real value. It was just like, we don't like that. And so you're kind of preaching the opposite. So we'll roll with you. Nothing real there. But okay. So you have Ben Shapiro who goes out and to me, I felt like he absolutely ripped into Candace and Tucker Carlson, who also, if I'm not mistaken, please, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Tucker either came up right after him or spoke at AmericaFest that same night. Like, I know for sure he spoke that same night. I just don't know if he was immediately after Ben Shapiro, or if maybe like one or two people went after Ben and then it was Tucker, right? So that is already interesting. So Ben goes off on Candace and then Candace responds. Now, see, this is what's interesting to me is now loyalty is being tested, and it's really going up. It's not really like, are you loyal to America? It's more like, are you loyal to the ideas I want you to have? I want you to have certain ideas. I want you to have certain thoughts. And are you loyal to that? Or are you loyal to make America great again in what it would have been in its purest form, right? And I think we're now seeing the fallout of that. The question that I have, and I want to ask people who are Trump supporters, who are Trumpers, who are a part of MAGA is, do you believe, hear me out before you get real defensive, do you believe MAGA still exists, although this administration is hugely influenced by Jewish partners? I'll say that. Do you believe MAGA still exists with that heavy Jewish influence in the administration? Because to me, a lot of people are realizing how influenced and how controlled Trump is, and he almost gives like a puppet who is being manipulated by other partners, and realizing that, they're speaking out against it, and it's making people uncomfortable because there are certain things you shouldn't say, although we know it's there, because he is not the first. Be clear, he is not the first. He is not the first. He is the first to publicly go out and say what other politicians did privately. Understood? He went out publicly to say and to stand up and say, "Yeah, these my people." You know what I mean? Like, these my friends, you know? He did that publicly, and other leaders did it privately. Now, I don't write down everything when I'm researching and stuff like that, but I also know there are other politicians, including Obama, who worked with certain Jewish partners, okay? So again, and even in looking at this picture of Jeffrey Epstein, let's not think it's only Republicans who do things, right? I'm looking at this article. Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter. People are involved, and that is what it is, okay? Okay. Now, back to America Fest. So Ben gets on stage, right? And he starts making all of these grifter accusations. So I looked into grifting, right? Just so I can get it correct, because I can assume via context what something means, but I want to get it correct. So it says in politics, a grifter refers to using a public position, platform, or political movement for personal financial gain or self enrichment. This just came to me. He's accusing more so Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, some other people of being grifters. And the same can be said for him if you let Candace Owens tell it, is like, you're also being a grifter because now you're trying to come and be a part of Turning Point USA when you knew all along that Charlie wasn't really a fan of yours, and now you're trying to be attached to TPUSA and make it seem as though you've always been his supporter and always, been in his corner when that may not have been the truth. So, if anything, both of you can be viewed as grifters. What I really, really, really want to get into, and where I really want to sit, is, to me, personality driven politics are imploding under this pressure. Okay. Ben and Candace started out where, to me personally, when I first started listening and really getting into Candace when she was on the Daily Wire, I would listen to Ben Shapiro because I said, okay, she's working for this man. He must have some level of like having it, you know what I mean? But when I listen to him, I'm like, "What?" Like, uh, there's a disconnect for me, you know what I mean? I couldn't understand why and I didn't know if, maybe he was the one who was, like, uh, the the largest payer, or the one that came with the best contract. I don't know. I just couldn't figure out why she wanted to work for the Daily Wire. And while I was listening to Ben, I felt like he wanted Candace to be on the Daily Wire so that they could use her voice to get to a lot of Black Americans who would listen to her, and she would be able to sell them a narrative that they wanted her to sell. When she did not do that, when she did not sell the narrative that they wanted, her to sell to Black Americans who would be Black conservatives, they were like, get her gone. You know what I mean? Get her gone. We can destroy her. We can, ruin her what she thought would have been a career because she's not doing what we intended for her role to be. That's what it felt like to me the entire time she was under the Daily Wire. Now, what was very interesting to me, and I am going to insert this clip, is how she addressed Ben Shapiro. So let's play that clip.
Well, Ben, when it comes to you and having worked with you, I just know. I just know the tactics that you use to feign popularity in the public. I just know the amount of money that you are willing to spend on advertising to inflate your numbers to make people think that you're popular. So, yeah, I don't have to say we don't know no when it comes to you. You are such a joke of a little man. Your jealousy against Tucker, your ability to believe that you can keep manipulating the markets. You know those kids booed you on that stage. The amount of messages I got from Turning Point USA people saying, what is happening? Why is he on this stage? Standing against everything that Charlie believed in. So that's what you're doing. You're standing against everything that Charlie believed in because you weren't his friend. He didn't like you for that very reason. I look at you and I just think you are such a little worm. I could see you right now, probably. What can we get out to her? We're going to sue her into bankruptcy again, right? Sue her for every infraction, every word that I don't like, and every time my feelings are hurt. Because what you really believe in is Baal Barith. That's what your people believe in. You believe that you are contract lords and that people are not allowed to violate contracts or you will ruin them for years. You fire someone and you effectively stalk and harass them for years after. I'm here to let you know that I'm done with it. I am done with it. This one is so fully off of the mother effing plantation. Truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on. And I say that on behalf of the world. I know you're going to get applauded by Konstantin Kisin and Andrew Christ is King Clavin and all of the people, the men who have to keep applauding what you do like you're a 4-year-old to make you feel good. But the rest of the world can't stand you. You're obnoxious. You have absolutely no values that exist outside of the Talmud. You describe yourself as a Talmudic Jew. And I've learned what's in that Talmud, and I encourage other people at home to learn what is in that Talmud so that you know what Ben thinks of you, because he doesn't just hate me, he hates you too, white men. He hates all Black people, okay? If he's following the rules of the Talmud, I mean, when I say hates, they think that we're animals, that they have a right to own us, that they have a right to make us worship them, that they have a right to lie to us, that they have a right to sue us and take everything that we have, that they have a right to deceive us, that they have a right to treat Charlie the way that he treated Charlie while he was alive, only to then try to defraud the population into thinking that he is somehow a part of his legacy, that he somehow cared about Charlie Kirk and cares to protect the people that are working at Turning Point USA. Goodbye, Ben.
Now, in that clip, right, she's calling him a slave owner, talking about being out on the plantation. She even goes as far as to say, fuck you, Ben Shapiro, just outright says it. And I felt like she had always felt this way after being fired. And I told you guys, she tried to play nice, and once everything was kind of finalized and wrapped up, whatever it was legally, she started to say a little bit more and a little bit more about Ben Shapiro. And I think the more he has revealed himself to her, she has said more, and I think now she's at a point where she is fed up. What's interesting to me, though, is everyone already knew this, Candace. Everyone already knew this, especially Black Americans. Black Americans had been telling you this. We had been saying, "Hey, Candace, that man isn't who he thinks he is. Those people around you aren't who you think they are. Those people are using you, right?" And now I think she's getting it. So to come out and call this man a slave owner and him being out on the plantation, it's like, girl, thank you for waking up, right? Thank you for waking up, but where have you been? You know? And that is the importance, not to sound funny, but that is the importance of having Black friends who are like really Black. You know what I'm saying? Like who really grew up around Black people, because anyone could have been told you what they were doing because the writing was so clearly on the wall. I'm glad you finally see it, but baby girl, that writing had already been there. So thank you for waking up, but folks have been screaming this from the mountaintops and you ignored everybody because you were still holding on to this movement that was full of bad vibes from the beginning. But it is what it is. All I will say at the end of the day is that they can agree on what they hate, but they can't agree on what they actually want. That goes for both parties, Democrat or Republican. They can tell you what they hate and they want to agree on hate, but nothing gets done when you just agree on hate. You need to agree on things that you actually want so there's some actual force and power behind your movement, not just what you hate together. You know what I mean? It's like y'all just link up just to talk bad about people. Please. No, we don't want it. Now, with that being said, I am going to wrap up and close because whether it's, car manufacturers, tech giants like Oracle, this MAGA movement, people need to be held accountable and people need to be, what is it? Their feet held to the fire because once they get exposed, then they want to take action and it's too late at that point. Transparency to me is always resisted by people who don't fully want you to see everything, right? If they don't want you to see what's going on behind the curtain, they don't want people to be transparent. They don't want people to be investigative. They don't want you to see the writings on the wall, and they'll do a whole lot of manipulation and talking to confuse people, to confuse you. A lot of us are no longer confused. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode. We made it through. It was very hard, but I got through, you guys. And it's crazy because I feel great. It's just this voice, right? Like I feel amazing, but the voice, can't help that. So, if you are tired of like the surface level headlines and you guys are ready to like dig in and like get to the meat and potatoes of things, please like and subscribe to Black and Classic Podcast because that's what we do here. We go a little bit deeper, right, behind the headlines, and we look at what's really going on in America. The question I have for you guys after this episode, really what I want you guys to think about is who's actually being protected? Who's actually being protected? Is it us as Americans or is it another group? You know what I'm saying? Think about it. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.